We believe the purpose of owning a business is funding your perfect life. Welcome to the next generation of growth and opportunity in the inspection industry. This is the Empire State of Mind. Empire State of Mind. Helping build companies with faster growth, higher profits, and more time freedom. Finally, a podcast for the home inspection industry and beyond. This is the Empire State of Mind. And this is your host, Matt Williams.
Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here. I have a repeat guest, which I'm super excited about. In fact, our last time we were together, we got to name this section. So we're sticking with Hanging with Hummel for now. We've had a couple of good suggestions come in, and we're still open for more suggestions. So please send them in. The ones we got were good. Well, there was one that was weird, but we're not going to go there. But the rest of them were just fantastic suggestions, and we may come out with something better than Hanging with Hummel. But for now, we're sticking with Hanging with Hummel. And so welcome, Mark Hummel. So glad you're here with us today.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for having me back, Matt. Super excited to dive in.
Yes. All right. That's fantastic. Hey, so real quick, there's two things I want to talk about. One of them is the Unite conference is coming up, and it is actually on May 30th through June 3rd. It's a life-changing conference. Whether you are part of IEB or not, you can come. I've been to a lot of conferences in my life. This is one that was absolutely life-changing and impactful for me, not just on a business level, but on a personal level. And so I'm excited about that. Mark, I forgot, where are we having it again this year?
Yeah, so this year, IEB Unite is going to be at La Cantera Resort in San Antonio, Texas.
That sounds fancy. Is it a nice place?
It is a very nice place, actually. And bring your swim trunks and be ready to kind of spread out a little bit. And while you're networking with some of the greatest minds in the inspection industry, have a lot of fun, too.
Is there a swim-up bar?
I'm sure that there is, man.
There's got to be, right?
There's a lazy river. There's got to be a bar.
There's a lazy river? Oh, I'm in.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all you have to say. So now you can network the greatest minds in the industry with a cold drink in your hand while floating down in a lazy river. I don't think it gets any better than that. That sounds pretty epic. All right, then the other thing I want to talk about is pods. This is a thing that's inside of IEB. So if you're a member, this is something you have access to. But if you're not a member, you don't have access to this. This is something that I think is one of the more valuable aspects. There's so many valuable things in IEB, but this is one that I think is incredibly valuable inside of IEB, are pods. Mark, can you explain a pod in a shorter amount of time? What would you say?
Man. So an IEB pod is the name that we've given to small groups in IEB. So, a few years ago, IEB was growing so fast that we had to answer the question of how do we keep the community feeling small and connected and intimate, and at the same time keep bringing great minds into the conversation. And so we came up with this idea of the IEB pod, 3 to 5 other inspection company owners, focusing on a structure that we help them walk out for deeper accountability on their business goals and some personal goals too. And at the same time, deeper connection with their peers as well, which is one of the most important things for us in IEB, is that the people are connecting with the people along with the coaching and training.
That's so good. If you missed our last episode, I talked about this idea of circles and rows, and the difference between circles and rows inside of a community. Like in a row, we can all put in a conference mode. Like there's hundreds of people. We're sitting in rows. There's one presenter from the stage that's communicating down, and that's super inspirational. And sometimes there's life change and transformation that comes from that. But the real meat of life change and the real meat of transformation that comes is when you are in a group of people in a circle. Some of my greatest moments of transformation happened around a dining room table, not in rows at a conference. And so our conference environment is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. But I think the thing that really helps us set apart from everybody else out there is that our ability to have circles when we have conversations happening on a regular basis and people are talking one-on-one, you're talking and receiving in the same conversation. And so go check out the last episode I did on circles and rows, and until you can really understand the value of what we do with pods and how pods are just a life-changing thing.
Yeah, man. And I'll add one thing to that, Matt, if that's okay.
Yeah,
which is that, the power of living life together in person cannot be cannot be overstated, right? And that's part of the reason we have this conference, for example, IEB Unite, because all of our coaching calls are on Zoom calls, and we love to get out from behind the camera and build that culture and connection at the conference. And this is, to my knowledge, it's the only conference in the industry that has absolutely nothing to do with the technical side of doing inspections. It's all about building you and about building your business. And I just absolutely love it. If you are not in IEB, or maybe you've been in IEB for a long time, make sure you get to the Unite conference this year.
Yeah, it's always fantastic. I feel like they get better and better and better every single year. It's incredible. All right. One of your famous phrases that you say all the time, business growth is a product of personal growth. Mark, what's something that you're currently looking at? What's bouncing around that brain of yours right now in personal growth that you think has an impact on business growth?
Yeah, I just love this topic, man. And so your business growth is always a product of your personal growth. And one thing I would say that, as people, we miss the mark on sometimes is that we don't internalize that to the degree where we take ownership of it. So it's very typical for a business owner or an entrepreneur to grow, right? You're gaining skills, you're maybe becoming a better communicator, better leader, things like that. But it's based on letting your experiences grow you. And what we find is that you end up perhaps not growing in the areas that are actually very meaningful to you. But when you begin to design your personal growth, then you can really move things forward in your life very quickly. And on top of that, as you begin to design your personal growth, things begin to seem more and more effortless as you get better and better at them. Now, here's kind of where my mind is on that, though, is reading. There's a lot of great readers out there, but we did a study in IEB a while back, and we just asked the question, how many books do you read on average per year? And we had the community broken up into tiers, right? So companies that, and I won't quote all the exact numbers because I may get some of them wrong, but I'll give you some generalities here. And the companies that consistently read more than 13 books a year, I believe, were consistently in that group of 500 to 1.2 million a year in revenue. And the companies that read more than around 17 to 20 books a year were consistently bigger than that. And
that's interesting.
There's a direct correlation to the level of business building that you can do and what you consume in reading. Now, we didn't make that up, right? We didn't decide that, hey, maybe this is a thing and do the study. We were following the science all along. The science bears this out in every walk of life, which is that, what you focus on grows, right? That phrase that we use a lot. So when you purposefully design your personal growth, and you're deciding what you're going to read and consume based on the needs and the direction of your life, man, it's an accelerator. So we have some tactics that we talk about a lot when it comes to really kind of shifting the way you think and really kind of reinventing yourself about every 90 days. And by reinventing, what I mean is being another version or a higher version of yourself. Here's one tactic. Read every day. Whether it's 5 minutes, 1 page, 10 pages, a whole book, what the quantity is doesn't matter at first. What matters is that you're introducing information or inputs, if you will, into your mind on a consistent enough basis that your outputs are influenced by them. Outputs meaning your actions. And if you really want an accelerator for taking yourself to the next level in something, and what are some examples of a something, right? Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's building relationships so that you can get more business. Maybe it's thinking in terms of systems and processes. Maybe it's financials or whatever it is in your business. Or let's go on the other side of the spectrum, and it's maybe the personal side of it. Maybe you want to be a better business coach for your team. Or maybe you want to be a better communicator in general, or you want to be more healthy or more fit, whatever it is. Here's the hack, if you will. And I really don't like the word hack, actually, because anything worth doing is actually work. There's no hack. But Here we go. So if you can pick 3 books on a subject that you want to dive really deep into and learn and be able to master, pick 3 books in line with that subject and read them back to back to back.
Wow. I love that.
There's more.
Oh, wait, there's more.
So the challenging part of this is, if we just do that and we're not very purposeful about it, it may take us, 3 to 6 months to read those books. On average, the typical person might read a book every 1 to 2 months. But if you really want to treat it as a deep dive crash course in personal growth, you would read those books as quickly as possible. And so you would literally take a look at the book, and depending on how quickly you read, you would say, I can consume these books in a certain amount of time, and I'm going to purposefully read this much every day to do that. Here's an example. When I was diving really deep years ago into human behavior and habit change and different things like that, I got 3 books. I read them as quickly as I could, which was 10 days per book. And I can tell you that from day 1 to day 30, I felt like I was a 100% different person. Like I was thinking about this all the time. I was talking about it all the time, and it was beginning to shift the way I showed up and the way I took action on things. Yeah.
So how many books a year do you read?
Actually, my goal is not that high. So my goal is about 2 books a month. So 24 books.
Okay.
And I typically set a goal of 8 subjects. So 3 books, 1 subject. And I try to be very purposeful. So I start with the question of who do I need to be to sort of master what I'm doing? And then I go find subjects that are in line with that.
So when you started this saying designing your personal growth. You literally are designing it. Like you say, these are the 8 things I want to master this year. And here's the books that I'm going to read. Like you've actually mapped it out. It's not like you're walking through the airport and you're like, yeah, that looks interesting. And you grab it and read. You actually are pretty intentional with what the books you're reading. That's what I'm picking up. Is that what you're doing?
Absolutely, man. And yeah, and I'm not perfect at it. I'll definitely say that. Sometimes I pivot. Sometimes I slow down. Sometimes I have to sometimes I have to, read a little extra to pick back up with my reading goal. But yeah, it's all about designing growth.
Okay, so I got a question, right? Like I am not doing that. Like I read books. I read a fair amount of books. But I'm more of the, oh, that looks interesting. Or I heard somebody else say, oh, this is a great read. And so like I go pick it up and I'm like, and it's certainly changing me. But what you're talking about is super intentional. And I love that. So let's say you wanted to work on a subject. How do you pick the 3 books that you're going to read on that subject?
Oh, I love that question. So, if we just started with that, it'd be really hard to answer that question. So we're going to ask a better question.
Love it.
The better question is, who do I want to be at the end of this year? Right? What is going to be different about me at the end of this year that will move me farther toward my goals in business, my goals in relationship or family, my spiritual goals, my hobbies, whatever it is? Like there's no judgment around what it is. But who do I want to be? And we're going to plan backwards, right? And this is kind of a cornerstone of goal setting in general. We have to have clarity and vision before we just start picking things to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because without vision, people perish. Without vision, you lose momentum and steam. And it does feel very random where you take that same amount of energy with a clear vision and you're going to go very purposefully in a direction. I love that. So you figure out what you want to do, who you want to be at the end of this year. And then you identify a few core topics or a few core areas that maybe you recognize you need to grow in. Is that what you're doing?
Exactly that. Yep.
Okay. So now you've identified one area. Let's what's one of your topics that you've identified this year for yourself? What's one that you say, I'm going to dive deep into this?
Yeah, man. So I'll give you 2. So one is, and if you caught the podcast last time when Matt and I were together, we talked about sleep, right? Mm-hmm. And so one thing I've decided, or maybe learned is a better way to say that, learned from other smart people, is that all of my goals right now, both in business and in my personal life, are a product of how well I'm sleeping. And so right now I'm reading, and I haven't started reading these yet. There's some on my queue, but like I'm going to definitely dive into sleeping as a subject.
Okay.
And I want to understand more and more science around that. And then another one, and I really think this is applicable in our industry right now, as technology shifts, as the age of people in our industry shifts, and as growth strategy changes in our industry as well, is content marketing. Right. And a lot of inspectors are doing content marketing, and even if they don't realize they are. And it's things like videos and blogs and list building, essentially. Right. Getting people to know your name, trust your brand, and sign up for something so that they can continually get things from you. You want to hear something amazing with content marketing?
Yeah.
Is I was talking to our higher tier members in IEB just yesterday, and they were telling me about an inspector somewhere up north that is getting about $5,000-$10,000 a month in ad revenue from TikToks that they're putting out for their inspection company.
Wow. So they're out like, so they're posting like the crazy stuff they're finding, but because they've gone somewhat viral and they have enough followers, they're able to get ad revenue off that.
That's it. Now, wow. I'll tell you, not everybody is made for that. So don't just hear that and go out and start shooting TikToks. But but one thing I'm super curious about is what it would look like in our industry to really give away so much value that it starts to have a return like that. And that's content marketing 101, right? Like you're going to give away a lot of free value and the business will come after that.
Right.
So
that's part of what we do right here on the podcast, Empire State of Mind, is that we're giving away as much, like a ton of content that comes out of IEB. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because once you're inside IEB, there's even more content available and more help that's inside. And you're right, like it's just giving away content all day long for free.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yep. Love it, man. So that's one of the subjects I'm diving into right now. I'm doing a lot of reading and stuff around that.
Okay. So let's say content marketing is the topic. Let's take it one level deeper. Okay. So you've decided content marketing. Then if you Google it, there's going to be like 1,000 books on content marketing. How do you narrow it down to 3 to be like, okay, these are the 3 that I'm going to stack, like a book stack is what you're talking about, like a 3-book stack, and you're going to power through it and just dive deep. How do you narrow that down, man? There's so many books on sleep. There's so many books on content marketing. It just seems overwhelming when you do that, a Google on that, or a search on Amazon or wherever else. Help me understand. How do you narrow it down?
So I'll give you a little bit of a tip for that, which is find one book that's really good and then start to get the books that they reference.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can a lot of times just turn to the back of the book and see where they got their information and start to build a list of things that you want to put on your reading list. And, to take this another way, you could also just find those authors and those people. And a lot of times they have YouTube channels and podcasts and different things like that too. So you can kind of augment your education that way for free. But I will give you one book that I think is amazing. And then my homework for the group listening here today would be, if you're curious about this kind of thing, read this book and then go look at the books he references. Okay. So the book is called How to Get Paid for What You Know, Turning Your Knowledge, Passion, and Experience into an Online Income Stream in Your Spare Time. Okay, so it's specifically talking about content marketing in this book. And the author is Graham Cochran, and he's a guru at this stuff at this point. So if you're in an inspection company and you're wanting to kind of get outside the box, which I encourage you to do right now, especially in our current market environment, with the slower period that we're in, I would say now is the time more than ever to start making yourself relevant and building trust. And this is a great way to do that. Content marketing.
That's incredible. I love that. And so you go to that book, you read it, you get some inspiration, you get some ideas, but then you go see where he's getting his inspiration from. Mm-hmm. Because this guy's content, his book is going to be great. There's going to be a unique spin on it. But yeah, you're right. Like he's going to be inspired by other things. Man, that's a great way to find additional books in the topic. Do you have any other tricks that you use or any other, I shouldn't say trick, but any other like suggestions or anything that you've learned along the way to finding good books?
Man, I'll tell you, Matt, I've had to set a budget for books in my life because every single time I hear somebody who I respect mention a book, I buy it literally on the spot while I'm talking to them. Occasionally I'll be like, hang on a second, I'm going to buy that book, and then we'll keep talking. And a lot of times,
what's
if
funny
I'm
is
traveling,
in the background right now in your office, it is a floor to ceiling bookcase, just books everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, I that's really funny. So you just have all these books, you just like buy it and just throw it on the shelf, and then you're like, I'm going to get to this eventually.
that's it. That's what I do, man. And like when I'm traveling, it's kind of exciting because when I'm traveling or going to conferences or something like that, I'll buy books on the spot, and then when I get home, like there's a whole stack of new books. Which, if you're a nerd like me, that's exciting. But
do you remember? Do you get primnesia? Like when the box shows up, you're like, oh, I forget what I even ordered.
That hasn't happened to me yet. I'm usually pretty clear about what's coming. I will tell you though, it gets mixed in with what my wife orders. And there's where the disappointment is it's not the book I ordered. It's another roll of scrapbooking paper or something like that.
That is hilarious. That is amazing. So all these books, I imagine, like another thing we talk about all the time around here is like a mindset shift. Mm-hmm. These books have got to be something that helps shift your mindset. And when you dive deep like that in a single subject, I imagine that combined with the sleep we talked about last time you were on the show. Imagine you're sleeping, you're probably processing some data in your sleep even. So you're reading a crazy books, right? You're diving deep on a subject in some incredible books. You're sleeping really well. What are the effects that it has on your mindset? I mean, I don't know. What have you had any mindset shifts happen because of your designed personal growth plan that you're doing?
The truth is, man, is it's such an important and impactful practice that my mind is shifting all the time. And, just to share a little bit of my routine, I suppose. So I'm up early in the morning and I read about 20 pages every morning. That's baked into my morning routine because that's when I feel the most fresh and ready to absorb information. And then it's also kind of my strategy for starting the day off with inspiration, like learning something new and being excited about it. And so, that's a big lesson I've taken away from reading and continually having these inputs that lead to outputs, right? Mm-hmm. Inputs meaning information, outputs meaning thoughts and actions, is if you continually focus on what you know, then you're always going to be able to have more control in your life. And here's some context maybe. So right now, I talk to guys every day in the inspection industry that are focused on what they don't know, which is, when their market is going to just blow up and things will be easy, or when they're going to be able to hire somebody. They're focused on when they're going to be able to do this, or, what it's going to look like to be out of the field someday, or maybe they're out of the field and they're focused on, okay, I'm focused on all these different things with my team that I just can't really control. When you focus on what you know, like hyper focus on what you know, it's just another way of saying I'm going to focus on what I can control. That's the birthplace of taking action. And that's a line of questioning that comes really easy when you're reading and consuming a lot of great things, is because you're learning and you know more. So if you're ever finding yourself kind of in the whirlwind or, lack of clarity or lack of certainty, which is really common, that's one good question to ask yourself. What do I know right now? Like, what is true and what do I know right now? What can I do about that? And see how that impacts your actions. The what do I know question gets easier and easier to answer if you're consuming really good stuff, good inputs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because your mind is then focusing on those kinds of things. And I think when you don't know, the things that you don't know, that can create almost an atmosphere of fear and like fear-based responses, because it's because of the uncertainty of what you don't know and you can't control, right? Like when is the housing market going to recover? I don't know. I can't control that. In fact, I have literally zero control on the housing market in general. So I can't, like, spending my energy and time and thought process, my bandwidth, trying to think and process through things that I just can't control. Imagine like if you took all that energy and just redirected it into things you can control, and how much further you could go down the road. It's almost an exercise in futility to think and spend time even processing through all the things you just can't control.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, and that is a major mindset shift. Major mindset shift. Wow.
Yep. Well, it's a common question right now too. Focus on what you can control in the industry. Like when you focus on what you don't know rather than what you do know, what it causes you to do is make a lot of fear-based assumptions. Like, what if this doesn't come back forever? And you kind of go internal and you play small and you protect every dollar, which you should be doing. But for some reason, the way that translates out in the real world of home inspectors is we take our foot off the gas pedal of growth. And we slow down on growth activities and relationship building, and our retention starts to fall apart. And before you know it, like you've created this exponential decline in business because you're focusing on what you don't know and you're reacting to that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good observation there. That's really good. Mark, you talk to inspectors all the time. This is the section I like to call talking to 10,000 inspectors, because you probably talked to 10,000 inspectors. So what lessons from 10,000 inspectors, any lessons you picked up recently from talking to so many people in our industry?
Absolutely, man. I think there's so many lessons. It's tough to pick one, but here is one I'll share with you right now. So inspectors who, we'll call them business owners because sometimes they're not inspectors. There's people in IEB that have inspection companies that have never done an inspection. So business owners who are focused on positioning right now rather than just trying to grab every single thing they can, whether it be whether it be market share or inspections or revenue or whatever. People who are focused on positioning will be the market winners in the economy or in their markets when things start to swing back in our favor. What does that mean? What does positioning mean? When we say positioning in IEB, what we're talking about is taking this time right now, today, preferably tomorrow, but if you haven't started, today, to refine your systems, refine your processes, and become a lean, efficient inspection company. Because the companies that have really great systems and processes have cost-effective systems and processes, right? So when we start talking about increasing your margin, meaning growing your revenue without growing your cost too much, a lot of times what people do is they just, as long as money's coming in, they allow their system to just kind of go crazy.
Yeah.
And get expensive and get clunky. And right now we're seeing that in a big way because revenue's not coming in as it was, maybe a year ago. And now people are having to unwind a bunch of messy processes and refine and things like that. If you're not doing that, or even if you have great processes right now, if you're not doing that, taking them to the next level, you're not working on positioning yourself for when the wave comes back. Whatever wave means, right? It may not be like a super huge wave of business, but when things start to turn back the other way. Okay. The other thing with that positioning is relationships are really, really important right now.
Yeah.
And this is a lesson I'm seeing play out over and over again is inspection companies that are not building a bench of talented people to be in their business and at the same time not continually reaching out to their agents and people who they've done business with, like they're going to end up with nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But the companies who are nailing those two things, they're going to be the ones who are able to build and take advantage of the market when things go the other direction. And they're going to be able to do it fast because there's only two places you can occupy in a consumer's mind or your client's mind, right? So the agent, for example, that's the number one spot or the number two spot in their memory. Preferably you want to be top of mind, but if you can't be number two. And if you're not continually reaching out and positioning yourself, you're not going to be either one of those.
Because somebody else is reaching out.
Yep.
Right? Like that's the reality of it is if you're not, somebody else is. And I would say one thing that what you're talking about, I've started implementing already, but these real estate teams that are high producing teams, they were super, super busy during the recent growth period during pandemic, and being able to get them to sit down for lunch, or trying to get into their office was like almost impossible. I've had more luck in the last 90 days in getting connected with high producing real estate teams and growth activities because they'd slowed down just a little bit, and they had the time to actually meet. And so I know that I'm doing that, and our company's doing that, and other AB companies are taking this approach on doing it. And so now it's like, well, this is the time that you have the time to do this stuff. So yeah, putting your efforts in that area for retention and growth during a down market, you're right. It's gonna come back. It always comes back. And when the market comes back again, then yeah, you're in the position that you've now built relationships with more people in the down season. Now, when it comes back, you're going to have a lot of relationships that have been built. That's really good, man. I love that.
Awesome, man.
So what do you do with all this, right? Like, I mean, I love your advice on the books. I think the books were fantastic. That personal growth and having a design for personal growth was incredible. And then we talked about, mindset shift, focusing on what you know and what you can control. And then we also just talked about your lessons from 10,000 inspectors and your positioning. Walking out of here, what's your advice? What do you do with what was just said?
Design it. So ask yourself the question, who do I need to be to do the things I want to do? And then start to design your personal growth to become that person. Whether that's reading books, podcasts, paying attention to the people you're around, or any other input, as we would call them, design your personal growth. And if it feels big and scary or maybe just too complex, just focus on picking up a book.
And I like that, how you say, I'm going to become this person, I'm going to find one thing, and I'm just going to focus on that one thing. Like for you, it was sleep. You found one thing, and it's like, that makes it like bite-sized to eat that elephant. You're just chewing on one little thing at a time until you get that mastered. It's like it's like building a brick wall, laying one brick at a time. And I'm just going to focus on this one brick and make sure it's straight and it's level and it's clean and it's lined up perfectly. When that one's done, I can focus on the next thing. Eventually, you have a nice brick wall in front of you, and you've built something pretty incredible. I love that. Absolutely love what you're talking about here. That's incredible. Mark, people want to get to know you. They want to get a hold of you. They want to ask more questions. I know you love to connect with people. You are just passionate about that. How do people get a hold of you, man, if they want to get connected to you?
Yeah, great question. I love connecting with people in the industry, even just jumping on the phone and talking business and learning about people, whether they become an IEB member or not. Absolutely love to do that. So connect with me on either LinkedIn or Facebook. Shoot me a message if you'd like to. Always happy to connect.
That sounds great. We'll put those links down here in the description. So no matter what platform you're listening on, there should be something there for you to go find it. But LinkedIn and Facebook, those are your preferred connection routes?
Yes, sir.
All right. That sounds great. Well, thank you for tuning in on this episode of Hanging with Hummel. It was fantastic connecting with Mark, and I hope you had something that you learned and you're also able to apply it and makes a difference and a change in your business and in your life. Thanks, Mark, for being on the show.
Thanks, Matt.
You've been listening to Empire State of Mind for the home inspection industry and beyond. Our passion is to elevate the home inspection industry with mindset, strategy, and tools. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. For more, follow on Instagram at IEB Coaching. And don't forget to hit the website at www.iebcoaching.com. Learn about IEB at no cost and have all your questions answered on our open call once a month on the third week of the month. We hope to see you there, and we'll see you next time on the Empire State of Mind.